So you want to play Zoro? I got you. I got you. Hey crew, or if we haven't met yet, just Zay here, and I wanted to go over a brief breakdown on how you should be playing Zoro as we wait for what feels like an eternity in the US for the release date to finally come out. Or if you're watching this and it's already been released, then this is still going to be very helpful for you because I'm going to be going over my thoughts and processes and how to play Zoro. I think it's going to be very beneficial for you to watch either way. Now, if you find this video helpful in any way possible, then by all means smash the like button down below. And if you feel as though that you want to stay up to date on One Piece content coming from myself, then by all means hit that sub for love and stay tuned for more videos that will definitely come out as we wait for the release. So by all means, let's go ahead and get into the deck profiles and the breakdowns of how to play Zoro. So here's my example of a Zoro deck list, to which we're going to be discussing over today, and in no way, shape, or form, and I'm going to go over this later as well, this is not the end all say all, and I think anybody who makes a deck list and within this game at this current stage of meta is concerned, it's going to be the same thing, where you can basically throw just in about anything that's possible as long as there's some consistency, and you're going to do just fine. But this is what I think is the most viable option as far as going into playing Zoro as your leader. So going into the leader and his ability, first off, his ability is going to be when given a Don, he's going to be able to give all the rest of your characters that are on board 1,000. So exactly why I built this deck the way that it is. So we're not going to go over Ultima right now because I'll get into that in just a little bit later, but obviously you have the Tonys to block and protect you. I had the idea to play 4 of the Recycling Don Nami because I think with being able to play a rush capable character or a character and then use the benefits of Nami to then recycle a Don that was just used to play said character to throw it onto Zoro to boost your other characters, I think that's a very good consistency combo and should be definitely put at 4. And then obviously you have the Searcher Nami because 98% of this deck is Straw Hats. So why not run something that will literally search 98% of your deck, right? So that's my reason as to why I'm making 4 of that, obviously. Now running 4 of this Sanji in comparison to the other one is a little bit different than what a lot of people would expect. But for one, he's a 2k counter. So if you search it with Nami, that's just a benefit to you. But then he also has the capability to essentially, yes, you risk yourself taking a life, but you boost him up even further. Not including if you have Zoro's ability to boost him up even more. I think that would do a lot as far as benefiting and maybe getting that last hidden that you need, but more chances than not, you're going to use him as a counter. Now going into the next character, we have the Luffy. This is a very low costing Luffy, but he does have the ability to add 2 rested Don to him. So it's a very good recycle ability to reuse and utilize your resources to its maximal potential. And he has like the side effect of essentially, if he has a Don attached to him, he can't be KO'd by striker characters. And that's not really a huge factor right now, but it's just something that's kind of like a plus. His second ability is more so what I would be going for. Then you have Nico Robin. Nico Robin can be used in 2 different ways. For one, if you give it down to Zoro, Nico Robin has now a lethal hit. And then also, if you give her a Don, she basically can get rid of low-costing blockers, which is a lot more so the case unless you're going against purple, then it's a different story. But even then they have Black Maria, so it's a low-cost blocker that you can get over with using Nico Robin's ability. And it's just something that's like a benefit, and it also gets rid of a lot of pesky cards that may be giving you an issue. Now, interesting thing that I run in this deck is Uda. I run her at 2 and not 4 because she's a film type, so she can't be searchable. And she doesn't have a counter, so it's kind of like eh. But I do have her at 2 because she essentially will get you any other card that you have in this deck, with the exception of Cavendish and the 5-cost Luffy. She can basically search any of those cards that is in your trash when played, so that you can use it later. Essentially what Uda is opening your doors to expansion on combos, especially with your opponent not knowing what's in your hand, but you do, and playing that Uda will just give you more options, and that's what I love about having cards like that, where it gives you a wide variety of possibilities that you can do by just playing that one card. Then obviously you have the 4 Rush Zoro. I chose the Rush Zoro over the other Zoro because the other Zoro, yes, it has the nice ability to have an extra 1,000 on your opponent's turn technically, but it doesn't have Rush, and this is not a slow deck pace that I want to go for. I want to go for more fast, and playing that Rush Zoro is something that just has to be respected and always thought of, and that's what I want my opponent to be on, is like on the edge of not knowing when the Rush card is coming. Now going with that, I have Cavendish at 2 because essentially he's a unexpected card that people don't expect to kind of see in his deck. Yes, he has Rush, but a lot of people kind of forget about him, and I think he's very good to kind of sneak up on people. For one, because he's not searchable in the deck. He's one of 3 cards that can't be searched, him being one of them. And also, it's just very situational. And I say that because in order to have his effect activated, you do have to have that life return to your hand. You can't be at 0 and play him. But with that being said, if you do have that 1 life and you just kind of need that 1 extra hit, you can definitely play that and play the gamble game of, does my opponent have the counters in hand or do I have game? And that's kind of what this deck is a lot about. It's a lot about pushing your resources to the maximum potential as far as utilizing them over and over. That's why you have the Nami, that's why you have the Monkey D. Luffy to kind of recycle those things. And it's just utilizing everything that you can, and that's what I want to definitely push, especially with having Uda in there at 2, again because she doesn't have a counter. If she had a counter, I'd probably run her at 4, but because of her not having a counter, I had to keep her at 2 because I just do not want to have a hand of no counters versus counters. And I say that because Red has the consistency to kind of have the least amount of counters out of all the rest of the decks. But that's why you have, for example, your Ultimas. That's why you have the Sanjis in comparison to the other Sanji that does have Rush. I kind of want to have that extra protection in hand if I just don't got it just yet. Now, going with that, obviously, you have the Monkey D. Luffy. That's going to be at 4 because it just gets over blockers, and that's a very good thing, especially within a mid to late game where you're kind of like running out of gas. Having that to kind of get over those humps is very, very good. Then you have the In 2 Years. I think it's just a given. That's just another searcher card. I don't have it at 4, but it does do very well because it does have the trigger to search as well. It just limits to characters and not necessarily everything, which is why I don't run it at 4 like I do with Nami, because Nami searches Straw Hat type cards, and in 2 years this searches type characters. So that's kind of why I don't run it at 4. Now we have Jinbei, and Jinbei is honestly because Monkey D. Luffy has the capabilities to get over blockers, but the rest of the deck doesn't. So I like to put that in there to get over the hump of, you know, blockers. Blockers is a big thing, and a lot of people are going to try to get that going, especially seeing this deck and seeing like, hey, I don't think that they have that, because a lot of people don't run Jinbei, and I get it because it's very... If your opponent doesn't have any blockers on the field, it's pointless. And in the deck limited battles, it was very limited unless you're playing blue on how many blockers you're going to see. But now you're coming into a game state, for example, with purple. They have a particular combo where essentially you can have a blocker and it not be KO'd, and it can be utilized again and again and again. That's kind of annoying, and honestly, just having Jinbei would just ignore all of that entirely, because it's like, okay, I don't care about your blocker, I'm hitting you. And that's why I run Jinbei. Now, one thing that people may not like is that I'm running Red Hawk in comparison to Beam. Now, the reason why I run Red Hawk over Beam is because I think Beam, yes, it gives you that extra life, but I think that that's not very utilized as much in comparison to something that is going to give you your 4K like Beam does, but then it also KOs a 4,000 or less, and I think that's more beneficial to me. This is the more so reason as to why I have Ultima. Ultima is going to be used a lot more, especially going towards a green deck because of the 8 cost kit that is coming out. It's going to be a super annoying card to try to get over, and Jet Pistol just cannot KO it by itself because it sits at 8,000 and not 6,000 or less. But with Ultima, I don't even have to try to attack over that. I can just get rid of it with 2 cards. Yes, you're paying 2 cards for the price of 1, but that 1 card is annoying as hell, and you want to try to go for life. This deck, as far as what you want to kind of go for, you want to kind of have your starting hands with a Nami, maybe a Rush Zoro. Search capabilities is what you are wanting to go for because it just gives you more options on things, and that's my biggest thing. I would rather have a wide variety of things I can do rather than just a linear strategy, because then it may be super easy to read that strategy. I want to have a follow-up rather than not have one at all. So I think as far as Malikan hands are concerned, you want to go for kind of like, let's go ahead and go and do some test hands and just see exactly what we would get and see whether or not we would keep it or not. So as far as test hands, we have a Nico Robin, Tony, Nami. I'm not worried about the next cards because you're obviously not going to know that. But I would definitely say this is an okay hand because you have Nico Robin to help you utilize the recycling of Don. That's one thing. You have the Nico Robin to kind of get rid of early game pesky cards. And then you have the Tony to kind of protect your life one time. So this is not a bad hand. And if you were to get this off of a mulligan, I think this would also be very okay for sure. But let's go ahead and do it again just to kind of see exactly what we would get in a different state or whatever. Let's say you're going second. If I'm going second and I got this hand, this is completely fine. I say it's fine because, for one, I have two different searchers. I also have the Recycling Nami, Nico Robin, and a Rush Zoro. Actually, I think this is the perfect hand to have as far as if this is a starting hand or a mulligan hand, because you have almost all of your options in the deck, and then you have the capability to search 2 other cards. So it's kind of like whatever you didn't get, this is completely fine entirely, especially if you're going second, because not necessarily just the extra draw 1 card, that's kind of cool and all, but it helps because you are now having more options as far as Dawn that you're getting on your turn 2 rather than turn 1. I think with this deck you can go turn 1, but I think it's more utilized to go turn 2. Now it's kind of like a dual-edged sword as far as going either way it goes, because yes, you want to go first so you can attack first, that's one thing, true, but then also you want to have more Dawn as well. So it's kind of like whatever you're going for in a deck like Zoro is really up to you. Adding the Dawn to Zoro is definitely a kind of must situation as far as pushing, because it's just the extra 1,000, why not do it? And it also boosts him, so it's kind of like, again, why not do it? You're gonna do it anyway when you swing with Zoro, unless you just want to swing with 5. But that's kind of the thing that you want to do with this deck, and hopefully this helped you out a lot. I know it's like super brief and everything like that, but it's kind of like just a card for card breakdown, because at the end of the day, the biggest thing is just overall building the deck how you feel is most comfortable with you. If you just want to scrap this entirely and just do what you want to do, then that's completely fine. If you just want to run vanillas and just go low cost vanillas, play, next turn you're swinging with 5 vanillas that were just 1 cost, it's been done and it's won, so why not do it? You know, it's kind of whatever you feel is most comfortable, and that's just the biggest thing with running a deck like this, is that you have so many options, and this is not necessarily I have to do a certain strategy to utilize his effect kind of thing. Like for example with Odin, you have to discard a Wano card to restand 2 Dons. You can't just do that every turn and it'd be okay. You're gonna just trash your hand and that's kind of pointless. No, it has to have some type of strategy. With a deck like this, you just attach a Don and it just helps you, and you don't have to really think outside the box with it necessarily. It's more so just adding. Now with all that being said, what do you think of my ratios for the Zoro deck? Overall, I just want to hear down in the comment sections as far as what you may be doing differently, or are we in the same kind of mindset? I love for people to discuss within the comments, because it just kind of gives more people ideas, and maybe some people may be pointing out something that you just never thought of or seen. And that's what I love about the discussion aspect, is that we get to learn stuff from each other, and that just makes it all the more fun as far as competing, because then it's not just complete bully beatdown. It's okay, now I have challenges, but it's still fun, and that's the biggest thing that I love with games like this. And that's why I always appreciate people that drop down comments, and I reply to every single one of them, so that helps out tremendously as far as discussion and expansion on just going with new ideas every single time. Also, as an update of something new that I have going on, I finally set up a Patreon. And if you don't know what Patreon is, essentially it's like a subscription based thing to kind of get early access into things that I post on YouTube or on Twitch or stuff that I have going on. You would get earlier access to those things, and depending on what tier that you get, you may have access to free coaching or matte designs, because I love actually being super creative about just designs in general. I don't know if you already noticed that. And it just gives you a wide variety of things that you can get into. And then also I do make deck lists and put them on there as well, so that it's kind of my personal deck list rather than this is just a initial thought build for the general population. So it definitely helps to do that, and all proceeds that I do get from Patreon literally go 100% back into putting out content for y'all and doing giveaways and just expanding the fun and stuff that I do on here for y'all, because I love making stuff fun. I love making things creative and integrating things with people and just interacting with all of y'all, because y'all are just, you know, the greatest. I love all support that comes no matter what, and I tend to give it back 1,000-fold to y'all, because y'all are just amazing, and I appreciate everything that y'all do. I'll have that link down below as well. And like the future greatest swordsman in all of One Piece said, let's get going. On that note, stay motivated, know that the One Piece is real, and know that you got love over here. And happy Thanksgiving. By all means, peace.